Hello, Dodgers fans, and welcome to another edition of Dodger Dialogue. And this week, our guest is pitching coach Bill Simas. Bill joining us from his home in Fresno, California. And Bill, we thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to visit with us today. First and most importantly, how are you and your family doing during this time?
We're great. Very much bonding together. I have, my whole adult family's back in the house at the same time. But we're doing great. We're healthy. Just finding creative ways to kind of get out, take walks, take hikes, just finding creative ways, doing puzzles, playing games together. Just trying to figure out how to shelter in place and not be at each other's throats all the time.
Well, what would you say has been your favorite family activity so far, the ones you just listed, or something else?
Actually, the game you play where you put the phone on your head.
And, I know what you're talking about.
Heads up.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a really fun game. Sequence is a big game in our house as well. But doing puzzles together, I don't know if I have a favorite one. Just actually hanging out with the family is really fun.
And from the work side, and we've had other coaches on right now and know some of the things that guys are doing, having Zoom calls with players, things like that. But what's a typical working day like for you at this point?
We broke it down to our teams. So now we have a full slate of pitchers. We actually have the whole team. So we have a team meeting on Wednesday, Friday's pitchers meeting, and then I break it down throughout the week individually or the small group settings. So I know how to share my screen on Zoom. There's some stuff that I'm doing that I never thought I'd do. So built a PowerPoint, voiced it over. It's been a great time, and we're trying to develop players remotely, and it's challenging. And the game usually presents the teaching moments, and we don't have the game. So we're being creative and trying to find ways to remotely develop these guys.
So when you're meeting with either pitchers as a group or in a one-on-one setting, what kind of things are you focusing on? Are you going back to maybe some of the things that you saw during spring training? Are guys sending you video? How do those teaching moments happen in this time?
So we're in a unique position kind of where we have a lot of free agents. So they don't know what we do as far as Dodgers and why we are the best in the industry in developing players. We have a lot of information. We have a lot of stuff, that we present to the players that they're not accustomed to. So the way I kind of broke it down was what in the month of March, what did we miss that we would have done before we had our first game on the 9th in Oklahoma. So, the game planning for me, the true media, the vehicles that we have for them to look up on how to develop or how to game plan. So we have a lot of stuff that I chose to kind of show them stuff that we do and how we do it. So that's kind of where I've done it. And also there is videos. They'll send me videos. We'll go back to the player plans that were presented in spring training, like what our plan was for development, and we'll make sure that they are doing those through their bullpen settings. So all of the above that you mentioned. It's just we got to get creative, and sometimes it's just fun. Maybe players miss the clubhouse, the field, the smell of the grass, like that's really hard to do. But just to get on and see everyone's face and smile and laugh and do the things that you would do on a field every day or in the clubhouse, sometimes that's actually valuable. So just being creative, trying to find ways to keep them motivated. That's kind of the way we're kind of going through this process.
Well, you just touched on a lot of the technology aspects of not the organization and how it's implemented in your job. And this was something that I was planning on covering. You're coming into your 10th year now coaching in the Dodgers organization. Obviously, during that time, there have just been technological advances by leaps and bounds. So how has it been for you to adjust to incorporate that stuff into your coaching methods and teaching methods?
Yeah, interesting because I was in with the Dodgers during the phase of technology. At first, you shake your head, and you kind of like, man, this is a lot of information, um, a lot of information, and how do you decipher it and take it to the player? A lot of the stuff, as you dig deeper into, you actually saw with your eyes, and they just put a number to it. So once you can combine those two, and then it is how do you take it to the player without giving them bombarding them with so much information. So it's valuable to us as coaches, how you look at the numbers and then take it to the player is kind of interesting. So yeah, it's been great. um, we have so we're leading in technology in the industry, and it's a great place to be. Um, we're on the cutting edge of all technology, so it's been a really fun process, and it really does help you as a coach. And you need to dive in. You need to be open minded. It's taught me how to be open minded, not closed minded. Old school, new school, all that stuff. It's been great.
Now, I'll have a few other questions about your playing career later, but do you wish you had these kind of technological information and all that at your disposal when you were a player?
That's funny you say that because as a young player, I would probably say no. But now sitting back 30 years, I would say I wish I did. But what we did as players then, we knew we had a really good pitch. We didn't know why, and so we just threw that pitch over and over. Now we have, hey, if you throw that ball with spin and it stays in the air, which is induced vertical break, and not to bore you with all the stats, but
Oh, you know, you're
it,
not boring me, but
yeah, I know that. I know. I don't want to get carried away for the fans, but induced vertical break, ball stays up in the air longer. That's a fastball I threw, and I knew the guys couldn't hit it, so I just kept going higher and higher. So I guess kind of breaking it down, where as a player, you knew you did something good. You didn't know why. Is it better that I didn't know and I just trusted my instinct and I did what I did? So that's kind of what I'm talking about with the players now, where what's too much information um, versus just go out and do what you do really good and be good at it. So I guess now we can tell the players, like, you have a really good pitch. Numbers tell us that you have this is a really good pitch, like throw it more. So that's kind of how technology's helped us as coaches. And I'm not sure I was ready. I would have been ready for all this information as a mid 20-year-old, thinking that I was invisible. I'm the greatest guy ever. So I'm not sure I would have been ready for it. But put me in my spot right now, and I would have loved all the information for sure.
last year marked the third time in 4 years the Oklahoma City pitching staff led the league in strikeouts as well as set a team record in the process. I would imagine the implementation of a lot of that data has to do with it, but is that something that is kind of preached within the organization to try and get that strikeout, or is it just really coincidence that that's happened over the last several years?
I think it's industry wide. Swing and miss obviously is what you want, and that will propel you to the big leagues. Yeah, I don't know. I think the implementation of the information that we get, and also the way that we sign free agents and the way that we push players through our system are based on those principles, right? Swing and miss and stuff. So last year, I can't believe that I didn't even know that. I did actually know it before you just told me, but I did not know during the year or at the end of the year that we led the league in strikeouts, because there were balls flying all over the yard. It was really hard to even fathom that we had any swing and misses. You remember some of the games, but yes, for sure, our catchers are on board. We know where the swing and miss zones are, and that just goes to kind of show you, like, where we are in the process of everything. Because last year, if you look at our team, like stuff wise, our pitchers, we didn't have great stuff across the board, but we managed to find a way to get people to swing and miss. And that is what we do, and the information is valuable to us, and the catchers know what each pitcher does really good. So, and then us putting them in the right position to face hitters, and that's a whole nother aspect of data and information. And so, um, yeah, it it's awesome, really is.
And you mentioned last year a little bit and some struggles from the pitching staff, but it wasn't just unique in Oklahoma City. It was really across the board due to a different ball that was being used. I don't know if that how much you really feel now in retrospect, looking back now a season ago, how much did that ball play a factor, and what were some of the challenges guys had to battle through in order to find ways to be successful?
Yeah, I think confidence for number one. Like, you see balls flying out of the yard, and it's like, well, I can't throw this pitch. I can't throw this pitch. But getting them to understand, listen, they're going to hit one and it's going to stay in the air longer. The ball was definitely, I wouldn't say juice per se. I just think that the skin was smoother. The seams were inlaid in the baseball more, which um, had less drag in the air, and it just stayed in the air longer. Definitely the ball had something to do with it. So the challenge was just confidence, keeping them confident that, hey, if you don't walk anybody, if you give up a solo homer, you give up a solo homer, it's going to happen. Um, so there's a fine line there between attacking the strike zone and not walking guys, putting them on base if a guy hits a fly ball and it leaves the yard. So that was a challenge for me, was just keeping them confident that, hey, you know, throw your best pitch, best location. If they hit it, they hit it. And if it stays in the air longer and it goes, and the wind was blowing out every day in OKC, it felt like last year. So, um, yeah, it was a challenge for sure, but, um, just deal with it and move on.
So, do you feel that now the guys they've dealt with it for a season, and of course, this is the same thing that the same type of specs that the ball is going to be used in the major leagues? Do you feel that now it's been in place for a season that guys will adjust when play resumes in 2020?
Yeah, but I'm also questioning whether they used a different ball in the playoffs. So I don't know
Not
if
the
they
only
have it
one, yeah,
figured out. Yeah, because there were some balls hit. I know Will Smith hit that ball. He hit the same ball earlier in the year,
right.
and it went out of the park. And in the playoffs, it didn't go
Probably hit
out.
it worse.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if they have it figured out. I don't know if we're going to use if it's going to be the same ball. Um, I think the tricky part for pitchers are when you mess with the seams of a ball and the smoothness of the ball, and we rely on the movement of baseballs, and it has to do with the drag and the seams and all that. Um, so that was the toughest thing for me is balls were moving differently. Pitchers had to readjust their grips. They had to readjust a lot of stuff to make the ball move the way they wanted to. Um, so hopefully they kind of go back to a happy medium. So we don't have to keep challenging the pitchers to, uh, make adjustments.
Several years ago, Buck Showalter was credited with saying, "Well, the hardest job in baseball is a AAA manager." I would maintain in this day and age, with the way of player movement, specifically on the pitching side, that the hardest job in baseball is now a AAA pitching coach. Would you, as someone who's now done it for 2 years, going on a third, would you agree with that?
I would, especially with the Dodger organization and the way that we make moves and the calls that we get. Um, because our game is going on when the Dodgers are playing. So it's all of our moves are predicated on what's going on with the game in LA or wherever they happen to be. So you're game planning and then we sit down, Trav and I sit down and, hey, if we're, here's our guys and here's who's available and here's how we're going to play this thing out. And then we get a call in the fifth inning, hold so-and-so. Like, so yes, I believe AAA managing and for me personally, a pitching coach is very difficult, and especially with the Dodgers. We like to make a lot of moves, which is a good thing because there's a lot of guys that have opportunities. But when you get a call in the fifth inning, you think you have the game in the bag and you got your best guys going, and you got to hold two of your best relievers towards the end. So it makes it tough on the manager and the pitching coach for sure. but that's makes it fun for us. So it's challenging. And I don't know if it's the hardest job in the world. I'm sure there's tougher jobs out there, and I like what I do, but it's challenging for sure.
Yeah, and we didn't necessarily see this as much, but what I think the typical fan doesn't realize is a lot of times those guys who might be on the shuttle, they'll be in the bullpen in the big leagues, and then the organization wants them to start back in AAA, and you're having to build guys up. Of course, they can't go as long, and it just creates this big domino effect. That again, I wish that more fans kind of maybe knew about. Is there anything else besides the stuff you just mentioned that you just kind of wish the average fan knew, whether it's about the pitching staffs or just how the game is played at AAA?
I do, because fans obviously have opinions. They come to watch. They love the game. They're fans and they want to see Oklahoma win, and we want to win as well. I guess just to keep on the same point is that we can't always put the best people out. Sometimes we're holding guys, for a need at the big league level. So when they're booing and we have a pitcher out there, well, that guy has to throw 65 pitches. I know he wasn't good after 40, but he needs 25 more pitches and he has to go back out, and Trav gets it because he's going out to take the guy out and he's getting booed. Like, please, I guess, to fans, just like understand we want to win. We are the most competitive people on the planet. We want to win, but sometimes for development purposes, things happen for a reason. And I guess it's kind of hard. I guess fans can't really understand that because they're not internally with us. And you're in our locker room all the time and you're in our discussions, like, what's going on. And I'm sure it's even hard for you broadcasting in, like, hey, this guy needs to get out of the game, but we can't do that. We can't. He's got to throw his pitches and he has to get back out there and get his up downs and throw 3 innings of 65 pitches or 4 or whatever it happens to be. So I guess there was a process. So fans, while I don't expect them to understand, maybe sometimes instead of booing, they could just sit and maybe sip on their Coke or eat a hot dog and let us do our job.
Well, what I remind people on the air all the time is I say, there's always a reason. Just, we're not making moves by picking them out of a hat. There's always a reason. That gotta always keep that in mind. And we're not always privy to the reason why, but trust me that there is a reason. Back at home right now, you have 2 baseball playing sons. Your older son, Cole, pitcher at the University of San Diego. Your younger son, Carson, last year drafted and signed by the Boston Red Sox. Unfortunately, his first spring training basically ended just as it started. So how are those 2 guys adjusting to their time, not having a season or a spring training and staying in baseball shape at home?
Yeah, that's one thing that's kind of keeping me going as well. Like, we're trying to motivate our players, the players that I coach, and I also have to motivate my sons here at home. And I guess I really haven't talked about this too much openly, but Cole, my oldest son, is now in the transfer portal. He's going to find another place to play. It wasn't a good fit for him, so we're going to move on there. But we're throwing. He's in a lot of talks with schools. It's kind of depending on the draft now, and there's only 5 rounds, so a lot of players might be coming back, and so we're working through that process. So my youngest son, when he was drafted last year, you think of a 5-year plan, right? And now they take away the short season club. He's 18 still. He won't be 19 until June. And you think about a 5-year plan, and then they take short season away. So it's like just trying to keep them motivated. And it's just not a really good. It's not a good time for anybody. And this impacts like everybody so differently. Like when you sit down and you think about what's going on, like the impact of the way it impacts different people is very different. So, like my Carson, the youngest guy, it's Now it's a 3-year plan. He's going to have to push his way to high A. And I don't know. I don't like the new draft. What we're leaning towards now with the draft. There's 5 rounds now. You can't pay anybody over 20 grand. That's going to affect a lot of people. If you're a junior and you were going to be 5 to 10 rounds, now you're going to go back to college. Like, you're not going to take $20,000. So the impact's tough for everybody, but trying to keep them motivated and keep moving forward. It's been challenging, but we're having fun with it.
Well, fortunately, their father's also a professional coach, so I'm sure that they're definitely fortunate in that regard. But going back to your comment about the draft, I think something that hasn't been covered as much is that, yeah, a lot of guys are going to opt for college instead. A lot of guys are probably out for junior college so they can be eligible again after next year. But at those 4-year colleges, there's going to be a lot of coaches that are going to have difficult conversations with some guys. Terms of there might not be a spot for them next year if they have maybe a more talented freshman coming in who probably would have gone and signed even if they were in that range of 6th to 10th round picks. But I digress, I guess. But we'll have to wait and see. I know the plan is to get it back up more in the range of 20 next year. But with everything else regarding this, certainly a fluid situation. Let's go back. I said we're going to talk a little bit about your playing days. Signed out of junior college by the Angels, traded the White Sox, spent 6 years with the White Sox. And first, I've heard you tell this story before about getting the news of your big league debut when you were in AAA, and how you actually thought a teammate was playing a prank on you at first.
Correct. Yeah, we were at a Bennigan's in Nashville, and we were about one of the big round tables, and there was probably 8-9 pitchers at the table, and the White Sox went 14 innings the night before, and we're reading the USA Today. It was before computers and everything, right? So we're reading the USA Today, and we're talking about, man, they're probably going to need somebody. They're going to need some help. And we just had this conversation. 10 minutes later, I get a page. Bill Simas come to the front, and I'm like, what? I look around, and there was a couple pitchers that weren't at the table, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I cautiously go up to the front, and it was Dan Evans, the assistant general manager, and I had never met him. I'd only been with the organization for 2 weeks. I had just gotten traded July 31st, and I was all, who is this? And he goes, Dan Evans, assistant general manager of the White Sox. And I said, okay. And he goes, go back, get your bag, and get to the airport. So it was interesting the way it happened. I thought it was a joke until, he said, go to the clubhouse and get your bag and come. So made a collect call to my family, my mom and dad, and that's basically all I did. And I sat first class on a plane for the first time in my life, and it was a really good experience. But yeah, I thought it was a joke from the beginning. Yeah, it was interesting.
I wonder how he knew you were at Bennigan's.
I think he called around looking for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of intel done beforehand, like where might this guy be, and word of mouth from somebody else that a bunch of guys went to Bennigan's, and maybe I would have been there. I don't know if he knew for sure, but I think it was a pretty good guess, and some intel went into it, and he searched around where I might be, so it was really cool.
One of your teammates during your time with the White Sox was someone that you actually knew from growing up, Robin Ventura, a few years older than you, who recently relocated with his family back here to Oklahoma to finish his degree and join the Oklahoma State baseball coaching staff. Were there ever times when you guys just kind of looked at each other and thought, how is it that 2 kids from Santa Maria, California, both not only become Major League Baseball players, but end up on the same team?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It really was. And he didn't even know I was coming, because I got there in the 4th inning, I think, of that game. First person I saw was Frank Thomas, and I was like, oh my goodness, or if they're all this big, I don't belong here. Yeah, he was DHing that day, so he happened to be in the clubhouse. But really interesting story. So I got in the 9th inning of that game, and Robin was playing first base. And back then, ponies were like a part of baseball, more part of baseball. And so I had pony spikes on, and I cover first base, and it was like boom, boom, boom. My big feet go clopping over there, and he flips me the ball, and I go in. It was the third out of the inning, and he sits right next to me. And that's when it was like the moment. He's all, I didn't even know you were coming here. I said, hey, here I am. Like, and so it is kind of amazing that two guys from the same town on the same team. It was a pretty unique situation. And we did share some moments throughout our career about it. And we had something in common we could always talk about back home and stuff that happened that nobody else knew about. So it was a really good experience.
Early on in your career, what was kind of that welcome to the big leagues moment? I don't know if it's necessarily the story you told about Robin Ventura, but you mentioned laying eyes on Frank Thomas for the first time, or maybe facing that opposing batter that you had watched growing up. What was that kind of like, okay, things are different moment for you?
Yeah, because of the circumstances of the way that my debut went, there was no real time to actually know where I was. Kind of, it was like get dressed, go out, and you got to compete. Because I was there in the fourth inning, got dressed, went out probably in the sixth inning to the bullpen. In the ninth inning, the phone rang, and I was in the game. So for me, it was the next day, and then every other city that we went to during stretch, you're sitting there and you're looking up at the stands. Nobody's in them, but these big fields, right? And upper decks and all this stuff. And it's like, oh, I'm here. Like, like all what you always dreamed about. Now all of a sudden you're there. As far as other moments, I guess, there were always people that you faced that you respected and you liked them. And then all of a sudden, well, I got to get them out. So no more, you can't be in awe. You just have to compete and get them out. And another moment, not to keep going back to Robin Ventura, but I pitched an inning, right? And I gave up like probably 800 feet worth of fly balls, and they were caught. It was back when Detroit had that big wall. I think it was 420 out there. Juan Gonzalez hit one about 415 on a slider, and it was an out. And that's why he didn't end up, he left Detroit because of that, I think. But I came back in and I'm mad. And Robin looks at me and he goes, what are you mad about? You just had you threw up a zero. Like, what are you so mad about? And I'm like, that guy shouldn't hit the ball that hard. He goes, well, these are big league hitters. They're probably going to hit that ball. So it changed my tune on to, if I get 3 outs, I should be really happy. No matter how hard they hit them, they can hit 3 line drives. They can hit 1,000 feet of fly balls. Getting 3 outs in the big leagues without giving up a run is probably pretty good. So a lot of those moments, came about that kind of help you grow.
So when one of your players now goes up to the major leagues for the first time, I know that's obviously a highlight of your job and any coach's job at the AAA level. Is there maybe a standard piece of advice you give guys, or is it just kind of based on the individual, or probably both?
Yes, it is a big joy to us as coaches when a guy gets the call for the first time. It's probably up there to a debut of your own, right? You're involved in these guys' life so intimately, kind of work together all the time. And I mean, there's been tears, there's been, happy, there's been, can't believe it. Are you serious? Yeah, we're serious. You're going. Advice wise for me is kind of just, be yourself, go up there and know that you belong, because that's kind of it. Like, you want this, you've dreamt of this forever and ever. You finally get an opportunity, and then you can't have doubt that that's where you should be. And it's a little bit tough because now you have 50,000 people in LA. We have maybe 4,000 people on a good night in Oklahoma. So I guess just the whole thing, just concentrate on the glove, like focus, normal stuff.
Hope I'm not putting you on the spot here, but like I said, you're going in your 10th year now coaching the Dodgers organization. Is there maybe one or two guys who you consider a real success story from where they started to eventually getting to the big leagues that really resonates with you?
Yeah, I do. The first one was Carlos Frias, and I don't know if Oklahoma was an
Oh
affiliate
yeah,
at the time. Okay, so you
2015.
remember?
Yeah, good amount
Okay,
of
so
time in 2015. But
okay,
he
so
had
I
been in the
started.
big leagues previously.
Okay, but he is a guy for me because I started coaching in 11. He had been a kid in rookie ball for 3 years, and I was going to Ogden. And I really wanted this kid, and everybody's like, "Ah, man, this he's been the same for years and years and years." And it was the first really story for me that, like, you know, I could have impacted this kid a little bit more than normal, and he had been around a long time and spent a lot of time with him, and he made it to the big leagues, and it really felt good for him. And then you have your Walker Buellers, and you have other people that it's like they're they're going to make it no matter what. Just stay out of the way, don't trip them, like, let them keep moving. So Carlos Frias was a guy for me that was a really satisfying experience, and a really good thing for him.
Well, before we jump into some questions that fans submitted, we need to have a really important conversation about ice cream. Braum's, our great sponsor here, the Dodger Dialogue series, have recently introduced 6 new flavors, and I'm going to share my screen with those flavors here in a moment. So we've got churro, red velvet brownie, caramel cone, salted caramel truffle, lemon blueberry cake, confetti cookie. Bill, if you have to pick one of these, which one are you going with?
Caramel cone for sure.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm going with
Caramel.
salted caramel truffle. I'm a big salted caramel guy, in
Yeah.
various states. But again, you can try any of these in their Sundays at Braum's locations now, and I'm sure we'll all be enjoying some Braum's ice cream once the season gets back underway. So let's now dive into a couple of questions that were submitted by our fans on social media here. And we'll just stay on the topic of sugar from Mikey Photos 98. Favorite candy bar?
Snickers. Snickers for sure. I like the nuts and the caramel and everything, so I'm gonna go Snickers, and old classic.
From Blake's Takes, what players throw your favorite pitches that you coach? So I guess he's looking for like your favorite fastball from a player you've seen, curveball, slider, and changeup.
Okay, tell me again. What are they looking for? Who
So
throws
like
the best
say,
pitches? Like
yeah,
Walker Buehler fastball, like for sure.
correct.
It's one of my favorite pitches. Kershaw curveball. I love to see the big curveball. Yeah, not sure about changeups really. Yeah, I'll go with those two for off the top of my head.
Okay. And the last one we have here, I believe it is someone who knows you, a family member from Thomas the Train underscore LOI. Hey, Uncle Billy, who's your favorite 11, almost 12-year-old? I can't wait for baseball to start.
Old Thomas, huh? He's been asking me when I was going to do these interviews, because that is part of my family that have been watching these interviews the whole time on Facebook. So they keep asking me. So Thomas, you're my favorite guy, man, for sure.
All right. Well, that seems like it's a good note to end on. Again, we've been joined today by pitching coach Bill Simas. Bill, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. We probably could have done it for a whole lot longer, but I know you've got other work you have to do. Again, best to you and your family. Stay safe, and looking forward to seeing you once we're able to get the season underway.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. This is great. And anytime you want to talk, I'm ready. And we could have done this the rest of the day, and I would have been happy.